I see stuff like drones and AI. As these drones get better and AI gets better, I say they're never going to replace an inspector. They could. I mean, you get a drone out there once it can identify a spall versus a DLAM or a spall that's deep that with exposed steel, joint defects, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, if you can learn that, I mean, then the drone could go out and do a lot of that work for you.
Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of AEC Perspectives, brought to you by RS&H and yours truly. I am your host, Rachel Moore, here with you for another very insightful discussion about the world of architecture, engineering, construction, especially from the perspective of RS&H. Today, I am going to nerd out a little bit, and hopefully you will too, because today we're going to talk about bridge inspections done smarter, how drones reduced risk, cost, and disruption. So today we're going to talk about RS&H's expertise in drone bridge inspections. We're going to touch a bit on new regulatory updates, and also it's going to be pretty obvious how RS&H is ahead of new regulations, because as a drone owner, I rapidly became aware there are regulations around using drones, even recreationally. So this is going to be all kinds of good homework for me. And I don't even inspect bridges. But with that, I want to introduce you all to who we have on the show today. First up is Corey Rogers. And Corey, first of all, thanks for joining us here on the podcast. But also want to hear about you. Can you introduce yourself to us? Tell us about what you do at RS&H, what your day is like. Just what do we need to know about you with respect to bridge inspections and drones?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So I'm our National Bridge Inspection and Preservation Leader. It's kind of a mouthful, but big title because we're doing lots of things on the bridge side. So I spent about 15, 16 years on the owner side with the Michigan DOT before I joined RS&H back in 2017. And at that time, we weren't doing a whole lot of bridge inspection. We were doing a little bit. We were dabbling into it. We had a few clients across the country, but nothing really major that warranted like a standalone group. So, I asked the question, I'm like, hey, why aren't we doing bridge inspection? It's pretty recession-proof line of work. It's always needs to be done. Federal mandates say we have to do it every 2 years. And then, we really started pursuing some more opportunities. Now we're a group of we're almost 30 associates within our bridge inspection group, working across the country. Some of our major clients, some Michigan DOT, Texas DOT. We got some work out on the East Coast, do a lot of aviation support work as well. So it's really grown exponentially. And, one of the things we task ourselves with, how do we do things better and how do we do things, more efficient, cheaper for our clients? You see some of this technology and everybody freaks out like, man, that looks awesome, but it's going to cost me a fortune. And that was what Scott and I kind of tasked ourselves with. Hey, how can we implement this new technology, but the benefit of our client, not only in quality, but improved cost too. So Scott's with me here. He's our drone lead. Scott comes from TechStot. He knows drones better than anybody I know. So I kick it over to him or kick it back to you, Rachel, and you and Scott introduce himself as well.
I think you did a great job, Scott. Tell us more about you and the drones.
Well, thank y'all. Good afternoon. So I'm Scott Brown. Been in bridge inspection for a little over 10 years. I was recreational drone pilot when I first started off. Got into it just out of a whim. Really liked it while I was inspecting bridges. And just one day I was like, standing there on a 20-foot ladder looking down and was thinking, man, it'd make much more sense if I stuck a $300 drone up here instead of me. And in that tech side, we have a lot of resources, but also, following laws, following regulations and stuff. And we were really pushing the agenda over there. Got my 107, became a licensed pilot. We started flying more and more at the DOT level. And, my biggest goal for the past 5 years has been, hey, the drone shouldn't be a tool that we're pulling out of the toolbox occasionally. It should be something that we're putting up there to replace an inspector on a ladder, something that any bridge over 20 foot has some kind of drone footage, something we're looking at. And so that's what brought me here at RS&H. Corey had a vision, I had a license, and he needed my experience. And I really, really liked RS&H, really loved what they stood for, the company, the innovation, the technology. And we've been pushing it ever since I started over here. And just so everybody knows, I started over here in May of last year. I mean, leaps and bounds just since I've been here with the drone.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been really cool, really exciting. Corey's working on some things. Hopefully we got some more things in the works. It's going to be an exciting year for us for sure.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we're all kind of understanding. I mean, you both did a great job there too, not only letting us know who you are and why we have you in this discussion, but why this is important to pretty much anyone out there. Oh gosh, Scott, I know if my husband were listening to this, he'd relate with the whole, why am I up here when the drone can be? Like, even from a heights perspective. But more practically, I know you're all going to give us some insights here too. And like, okay, what does all this mean? I mean, obviously, yes, we got the vision and the drone operator came together and made magic, but there's a lot more to this. And we're going to dig into this now. I even brought it up right out of the gate here for this first question. We have all seen some recent headlines and memos about drone restrictions. So let's say a bridge owner is like, oh my gosh, this sounds fascinating. I love that you came up with a solution. I should try it. Let's address that first. What should bridge owners actually take away from the latest of the restrictions around using drones and things like that?
So RS&H, we didn't really freak out. We kind of knew the American-made drone stuff was coming. One, there's a lot of data security stuff behind that, and not knowing where the chips are coming within some of the foreign-made drones. So actually, back probably 5-10 years now, TxDOT had a prohibitive technologies list. So with them being one of our major clients, we had to follow the TxDOT state laws regardless, or regulations around drone restrictions and technology restrictions, which forced us into American-made drones. So when the whole national restriction thing came out here more recently, we were already set up for that. So it wasn't a huge shock to our system. It was like, oh no, we need to go and reinvest in a bunch of new drones. Now, don't get me wrong, we did have some of the other drone models, for like occasional sporadic work, marketing work, or business development, that kind of stuff. But, we weren't like building government work with any of that. So it impacted us a little bit, but for where we're our core, our breadwinner, where we were doing the bridge inspection stuff, we were already on board with the American made and all this, the cybersecurity. I mean, we're running the blue listed drones, that the same thing that our federal government is using and state, local, and state police use. So we feel like we're in a good spot. We invested correctly anyways. So Scott, I mean, you can elaborate on that a little bit as far as what's.
Yeah, I mean, like Corey said, to kind of hit on there, this has been something that's been coming down the pipeline for a while. Basically what it comes down to is two countries can't agree on one thing. And, being here, what we do, we had, Corey took the chance and said, hey, I agreed that I'm pretty sure this is going to happen. And I don't want to say it was a gamble, right? Because investing in the drone was going to work out no matter what, but making sure that we were one of the few companies that had a drone, which, just to fall back a little bit, I'm in Fort Worth doing inspections right now. So that's why you see all my drone equipment behind me. But we took a chance and said, hey, let's go with the American made, spend a little bit more money, make sure that basically we can work for any client. Right now, if I was a bridge owner, if I was working at another entity and I was, hey, RS&H is out here doing it, let me go out there and try it. The biggest thing is, look where the money's coming from. If it's federally funded, if it's state funded, make sure you follow your local laws. Not all states have prohibited DJI or Chinese made drones. There are some states that are still allowing it, because not all DJI drones are banned, right? So basically, compared to like an iPhone 17, so they banned everything after the iPhone 17. Right now, you can still import the iPhone 17 and you can use it, right? But we can't use anything after that. So that's what they did with DJI. Any drone that's not approved after the Maverick 4 Pro, which is currently the biggest, baddest, drone that we're using around in the matrices, they can't be imported and be used. So if you have something older, you can use it. Which, like in Texas, like Corey hit on, we've had a prohibited list here in Texas for a while now, where we haven't been able to use that, whether we work for a DOT or it's a consultant like RS&H working for the DOT. So the biggest thing I would say, to that, to kind of emphasize what Corey was saying was, follow your state laws. Every state is a little different. And I think that's where we differ as a company too, as a consultant. We have an ongoing list of what all states require, what they'll allow, what they don't allow. But we went above and beyond that, right? And we know that every state allows American-made drones, and so that's the path that we took. So we're a step ahead of everybody on that for sure.
Can I ask too, for anyone who's they might be asking right now, like, well, what did you go with? Is there a specific make or model or manufacturer rather that you did wind up landing on? You're like, this not only gets the job done for us technologically. Oh, and you're showing it. I love this.
Yeah.
Show and tell.
So this is the Skydio X10. This is probably one of the biggest, baddest inspection drones on the market right now that you can get your hands on. Very high demand. There's kind of a waiting list for them. The Skydio X10, camera-wise, it's really good. The obstacle avoidance on this thing is amazing. I mean, you can try to run this thing through a brick wall and it'll stop itself. It's basically a flying computer. I know it looks weird to everybody out there that's not a drone person, but this is all folded up. I just came out of the field, so this is what it looks like coming out of the box. But yeah, Skydio is American made. They're actually on a blue list, so you can take it and fly it at NASA. You can take it and fly it for the federal government. You can take it and fly it for the FBI. It's something that they pushed when they saw this agenda coming across the board too. Hey, let's make a drone. Let's make it secure. Like Corey was talking about earlier, let's make it safe for us to fly no matter, anywhere for anybody in the United States. And that's the maker we went with.
Nice. Again, as a novice and someone who's like, well, I think I have a drone that's almost 10 years old. So maybe it'd still be permitted because it's so old, but you would definitely not want to ever use it because it's like, that looked super cool. I mean, again, I told you I was going to nerd out, y'all, but it's super helpful though, too, to know what you went with. And, anyone who might be like, okay, well, I just want to know, obviously you've got the know-how, you've got the expertise to do this, but what tools are you using? And that was really good to kind of not only know about it, but see it. So hopefully everybody's watching that and seeing what the video is and they can kind of make those determinations there. I want to get more into, I know we're talking about regulations and y'all meeting those, not just meeting them, but anticipating them before, which again, I think is a big crux of why y'all are so great as a resource and, someone to go with. But when it comes to like using drones for inspections, like, are there risks? I mean, I'm imagining the sheer presence of regulations would imply there are risks. Would love to know from y'all, what are those risks? And Scott, maybe we can start with you first, but what are those risks? And then, Corey, you can also, both of you can sound off on like, how does RS&H mitigate those risks? But what are we talking about when we're, thinking about like, well, there are risks behind using drones for inspections?
Yeah, I think some of the most common risks that, you're just going to run into day to day out here, especially with what we're doing, starting off, collision damage, safety hazards to personnel, like environmental limitations, where we're flying, what we're flying. We're not flying this drone 400 foot in the air and taking pictures. We're flying under bridges, around bridges, close to overpasses. I mean, live traffic, people. So, that's a big risk for us every day. Another one of the big ones that Corey hit on a minute ago is data and privacy concerns, right? We're out here taking pictures for our client. TxDOT is very big into securing their data, pictures of their structures, the information that we gather while we're doing this for the structures. So we follow the same rules. This drone follows the same rules as I would on the ground with the camera. It's in this drone until it's uploaded, until we go through our pictures and it's uploaded. It never sees anybody else's hands. And the biggest thing is, it's not connected to the internet, right? So it's not pushing data anywhere while we're flying it. Yeah, and I mean, a couple of the things, just as a drone pilot, this, whether you're a novice drone pilot or a professional drone pilot, the data and privacy concerns of just people being around, we have people quite a bit that'll come up and ask us, well, what are you taking pictures of? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And the last, I guess that one of my big things is just regulatory and legal risk, making sure that we're legal to fly, that we can even be there,
Yeah.
and once we know we can be there, making sure that we're not taking unnecessary risk, right? Although we need to make sure these bridges are safe at the end of the day, it's to ensure that we can keep this program going for years to come.
Yeah. Yeah. And Scott, like, thank you for sharing that too, because yeah, I mean, I know, like, I see sometimes drones up and around my neighborhood and I'm like, what are you doing? And that can very easily be, the nerd factor leaves and you're like, but why are you there? So I think it's super helpful too, to know that there is a protocol. You're not just sending out randos out, just like, yeah, go take some drones and don't tell anybody what we're doing, but you're making sure. And then even from the custody part of it, that it's only in the hands of people it's supposed to be in, from the time it takes the pictures and the data to the time that you get them off the system and use them for what they're supposed to be used for. Corey, I want to pivot that over to you too as well. I mean, obviously Scott just laid out a bunch of ways that practically, as you're using the drone, what you're being mindful of. And then as far as like kind of internally and long-term big picture, how else are you all mitigating those risks around using drones for inspections?
Yeah, I mean, Scott touched on a lot of the good points. The AASHTO, the Subcommittee on Safety Evaluation, recently published some guidelines on the use of UAS for bridge inspection. So we had the opportunity to go through that and was pleasantly surprised that a lot of, their guidelines and recommendations kind of align with things that we're already doing. And a lot of what they're focusing on is that risk mitigation factor, so it's, checking where your power lines are at, knowing if you're flying over traffic, what are your traffic volumes, where are your proximity within the airports, the stuff that we're doing on a daily as part of our pre-flight checklist and part of our, flight requests that we submit to TechStop and our Lance reports that Scott puts together. I mean, and that was a big part of bringing Scott in. He's such a huge asset to the group, is he knows all of that like the back of his hand. Because my concern was, we got drone pilots all across the country. I mean, we all have to be doing the same thing. We all have to be in alignment with how we're documenting this and make sure that we're protecting RS&H as a whole, protecting our clients' best interests. And we don't have somebody just going rogue and all of a sudden crashing it into somebody's windshield, right? That's kind of the worst case scenario. So,
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, that's what I'm looking at. It's like, okay, how do we protect RS&H? How do we protect our clients? You know, not only during the flying time, but through the data security and all of that. I mean, there are some risks with the inspection. I don't think anybody's ever going to say a drone replaces a person. Maybe 20, 30 years from now, who knows? You know, you get a robot drone inspectors flying around. But, you know, with the new technology, you know, we're running a 6K camera, right, Scott, on ours, I think it is. AASHTO recommends a 4K. They recommend you take a video of the entire, you know, if you're doing like a bent cap or a pier cap, you know, don't just take a bunch of stills, but run the whole length of the bridge with the video so you can go back and forth. You know, that's stuff we've been doing. Scott's just been doing it kind of as his just best practices when we're doing these inspections. But that gives us the ability to go back and look at that video, like, oh, hey, here may be a defect, and rewind it, and whatever we need to do. Now, the risk associated with that becomes data management, right? Data storage. That's something we're working with our IT group to stay ahead of that. Say, okay, what's the best way to store all of this? Because this is going to get exponential, especially if we start getting into like 3D models or all that crazy stuff. So I think a lot of people are struggling with that right now, but we're doing the best we can. We're looking at the options. And again, we're just saying, how can we mitigate the risk, provide this, you know, improved level of service for our clients without costing or really saving them money at the end of the day.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and we're about to get into this too, because anyone could come into this episode and be like, oh, I've seen drones. I've been thinking about getting one, you know, or maybe they've got one. They got one, again, recreational, or maybe they actually are really good. You know, like, yeah, I fly one all the time.
Yeah.
But there are so many aspects, and we've already covered a lot of that. Before you even say, hey, yeah, let me take off, you know, let's get it in the air, you're really taking care of a lot of the stuff before and after, everything around that happens. It's honestly, it's encouraging to me and probably anyone listening to know, oh, there is a lot of diligence around this, due diligence, making sure it's a serious endeavor you're doing, and you're looking at all the aspects about it. So, okay, time to nerd out. I would love to get a walkthrough of pre-flight to post-flight workflow, because again, super novice here. I know it's not just like, yes, put it on the ground and go. No. It's so much more complex, and that's just even me 10 years ago. So Corey or Scott, I would imagine we start with Scott here. Scott, since you're probably the one who's like operating this thing every day and multiple times a day, probably. Can you walk us through the pre-flight and post-flight workflow?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is where I get the nerd out, so I appreciate it. So yeah, so you know, being that, you know, obviously, right, we have a customer we're working for. Every customer is a little different in what they require, but what we do is the same. It's just how we turn the information over to them. So, you know, we'll just use TechStop, for instance, because that's one of our biggest clients. I just ran through one this morning. So basically, when we know what we're going to do for a client, one of the first things we do is we start mitigating risk at that flight site, you know, at the job site. Can we fly it? That's the first thing we look at. Okay, we can fly it. We look at the airspace. What airspace is it in? Do we have to file Lance requests? Do we have to, you know, what do we need to do to be able to fly? Once we get past that, then, you know, we go through and actually make a flight request and send it to the client, let them know we're going to be out there. This is the dates we plan on flying. This is our takeoff points. You know, if we have multiple, like when I'm doing bridge inspections, like I'm doing right now, I have 12 that I'm doing. I send them every location that I'm going to be flying, what days I plan on flying. And, you know, we get permission from them to fly it. Some of them we don't need permission. We just let them know what we're going to be doing. But we also go above and beyond, and we let them know, hey, we're good in these airspaces. We'll be filing for our Lance requests. And we let them know what we're going to be doing in the field. So that's what we do, you know, a week or two out before we ever even come out to the field. So we get all this done. We make sure everything's safe, and then we come out to the field. And so one of the first things we do, you know, in the mornings, we get up. I pull the drone out of the box, set it up, and we check for updates on the drone. We make sure the controller's up to date. We make sure the drone's up to date. One thing about these more expensive drones, these more high-tech drones, is that when an update gets pushed through, a lot of times there's things in it that the drone was doing wrong, kind of like your iPhone. You know, all of a sudden, you know, the volume button's not working. Well, that happens with drones too sometimes. So we always check for updates and make sure everything's up to date and safe to go before we leave the hotel. And then we just do a quick check of the weather. Hey, you know, the weather last night, it's Texas, right? If you've ever been to Texas, Florida's the same way. It changes within an hour.
Yeah.
We make sure that we're still going to be safe to fly. We fly under rules of FAA. You know, we have to, you know, basically a certain amount of wind. You can't fly. It's too hazardous. You know, if I don't have 3 miles of visibility, I can't fly. If the ceiling's too low, I can't fly. I got to be so far from clouds. So there's a lot of things that we check before we leave the hotel. And it usually takes about 30 to 45 minutes to go through it all with the weather. And then once we get out on the site, the first thing we do is we double check our airspace again. We make sure that there's no flight zone, a DFR put in place, which basically like if the president flies into town, they'll put
Right.
airspace out there. All of a sudden, you can't fly anything. And usually you have the heads up on that, but there have been times where I've been out flying and then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And I don't really know what's going on, but now all of a sudden I can't fly. So that's something, you know, we check when we first get there, make sure we're still good to fly. If we got to file for a launch request, we go ahead and file for it. We get it back. We check the weather again. And then we start doing our actual pre-flight checklist on our drone. We pull the drone out of the box. We check the props. We check the camera. We check the sensors. We check everything on the drone. The same thing with the controller. You know, we check our takeoff point. Where are we going to take off and land? Is it safe? You know, and then we're looking around at, you know, just the environment, people, cars, you know, usually at this point, you know, because we already know where we're going, what we're doing. So we're pretty safe from what we're doing, but we do it, you know, everything looks different when you're there, you know.
Yeah.
So we go through it again, we look at it, and my VO is always with me. And so we'll talk about it as a team. Hey, you know, this is what I'm thinking, what he's thinking. And you know, even though I'm the pilot, you know, I'm real focused on the drone, the bridge inspection. And sometimes they'll give me a good idea. Hey, how about we go set up on the other side? That way we don't have to worry about, you know, that school over there or something, you know, kids watching. Because one thing that we try to do as professional drone pilots, when you first get into drones, you're like, think it's cool to go to a park, take it off. Everybody's like, oh, check out your drone. Being out here, you know, I try to stay away from people. I'd rather nobody even notice me.
Yep.
So yeah, so my BO's real good at that. Let me know where I need to go. And Joe's real good about letting me know, you know, hey, why don't we do this? This is a little better. This might be safer. And sometimes he's right and we go with it. So yeah, so then we make sure we're good to take off, good to land. We'll check our air we're going to fly, make sure there's no trees we missed, no power lines we missed. And then after we do all that, we'll, you know, everything's safe, we're legal, the drone's ready to go, the remote's ready to go. We'll fire everything up. We make sure everything comes on, the batteries are good, the battery on the remote's good. And then once we get the drone in the air, the first thing we do is we just do a little visual check, make sure the controls are working. You know, if I push forward, it goes forward. If I go up, it goes up. And we check the functionality of the drone, make sure the camera's working. And then at that point, you know, I tell them, hey, man, we're good to go. We're going to start on bit 2. And we start flying and we're rocking and rolling.
Nice.
And then as far as like post-flight, one of the things we do is we just kind of backwards. We check the drone, we land it, we check it, and we make sure we didn't damage nothing during flight.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind, Rachel, I mean, on these, you know, if we're doing progress photos for like a construction job, you know, you can fly it, you can save that flight path, put the drone up, and it'll just fly that same path over and over, so you get a true progression of your construction. But I mean, that's pretty easy to do, right?
Yeah.
What Scott runs into at the bridge inspection, what some people don't realize, is you lose signal when you're up underneath that bridge a lot of times. So there's lots of times where very often Scott's flying that manually. So, you know, that was one of the things I think where it took a while for bridges to get buy-in for the drones for the bridge inspection was just pilot skill, right? And when these things first came out, I go back to my DOT days and everybody, oh, I can look at this with a drone and they're crashing it into the pier or the camera quality stinks or real grainy. And we're like, what are we doing? You know, this is going to cost us a bunch of money. We're not getting anything out of it. But now you look at, the pilot skill is way better than what it was. Camera qualities are phenomenal now for the sizes. You can attach LiDAR to these things. Lights, like, you know, we got, what's the light attachment we got? Cummins got the Hisense light attachment.
Yeah. Nice. It's actually going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah, so just the technology's got so much better. The pilot skills gotten so much better. I mean, it just makes sense that, you know, that we're into
I can reiterate what Corey's talking about with the GPS. So with drones that are a little more expensive, they're a little better. Like your drone, is it a DJI drone that you own, Rachel?
Yeah, it's been so long I can barely remember, but yes.
So your drones actually have GPS capabilities. And when they're out in the open, away from trees, they hook up to satellites. And so when you let go of the controller, if the wind's blowing, that's what keeps that drone in place.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between a good drone and like going to Walmart or Amazon. You buy the little cheap drone and you fly it in your house and you crash it. It doesn't have GPS capabilities, right? So what happens is when I'm flying this drone here, all this drone is flying off of GPS when it's out in the open. When I'm flying it around, I can let go of the control and the wind could be blowing 50 miles an hour and the drone is going to sit there and stay in place because that's what it's
Wow.
told to do. But when you go under a bridge and I lose those GPS capabilities, this drone is drifting. So you're flying more free-handed. And so that's where being confident in your skills and also understanding the risk, right? To be honest with you, if the wind's blowing 50 miles an hour, the drone would be in the air. That's a bad analogy. But say you have a 20 mile an hour gust going on, you can fly in that. But if you're under a bridge, I'm a foot off of the bottom of the deck. I'm a foot away from the column, try to get a good picture of a crack. And you got 20 mile an hour gusts. Not only are you taking pictures, but you're making sure you're keeping the drone from wrecking into that structure. So
that really does speak a lot to your skill, that this isn't just someone like, I think what we're trying to say too is like, okay, bridge owner out there or whatever, don't just like say, hey nephew, let's get you a drone and or niece and go out and get a drone. And why don't you go inspect that bridge for me? There's just so much to this that the expertise, the pilot skills, the knowledge of the tech, the knowledge of who needs to be informed. I love that you brought up about the do not fly airspace thing. I remember that was new news to me. When I first got my drone, I'm like, oh crud, somebody could say it, so I can't fly this thing and I can't be, there's so much you don't know. And I love the fact that you're sharing the RS&H. You've done that, like we said, diligence. You know all the things that really mitigate the risk, that make sure that we're approaching this as safely as possible with as much expertise as possible, because you are saving all this money because you're not wrecking the drone. You're getting the footage you need for whatever the need is. You're doing it in one shot, not having to send a human up there, but using technology to do it. It just seems like it's win when you do it right.
Yep. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Scott, I think give us some post-flight stuff. So like what happens after you're done with the flight?
So when we get done with the flight, of course, we bring the drone back. I'll hover it over place for like 20 to 30 seconds, check the controls again, make sure I don't hear any weird noises coming from the props, do a couple of just little tests, and then we'll land it. We'll let it sync up. Usually I hook it up to the Wi-Fi on my phone. We'll let it sync up because it saves its flight path. And one reason why we do that, right, is that's CYA on our part. It'll show that we flew our flight plan, what we were supposed to do, and how we were supposed to do it.
Nice.
And so once it syncs up and we do all that, we shut the drone off, we shut the controller off, and then we just check the drone again, right? One of the things we do is we go over the drone, we pull the props out, we check them for chips, because a rock could have fell off the bottom of that bridge and hit the prop and we wouldn't have known it. A car driving by could have knocked the rock off the side of it and hit it. We wouldn't know it unless, we get back and look at it, or it wrecked, right during flight. So we go over it post-flight just like we do pre-flight. Going through the whole drone, camera, sensors, everything again, making sure it's good to go for the next structure. And, if we have any concerns, then we adjust them in and make sure it's ready to go for the next bridge. And then, we load the drone up and, head to the next structure. And then, the only difference would be at the end of the day, one of the things we do to ensure that we don't lose a possibility of losing any data or any information we gained is take the drone and we bring it back with us and we hook it up and we download all the pictures and data that was taken that day. And then we format the SD card on it so it's ready to go for each day. Yeah. It was something that I was taught a long time ago from some old school. Basically, we call him the godfather of drones. Take your data off the drone as much as possible because it's just a flying computer and everybody knows, what computers can do. So, yeah, so that's the big, what I'm going to be doing in the hotel tonight is going through all the pictures and stuff I took today, seeing what we saw, trying to find stuff, and managing all that data for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice. Scott's a bridge inspector himself too, as well as a drone pilot. So having that, he knows if he sees a defect or something that needs to be escalated pretty quickly. Because the way, Rachel, we incorporate this into our process, it's fairly new. What are we, eight months into it now, Scott? As far as having a kind of a standard operating procedure is our normal bridge inspectors. We're doing anywhere from 150, 200 bridges a month now.
Wow.
So we're running multiple teams and they typically get out around the third week of the month to do their field inspections. And then they're doing reports until the next month for the third week, but it's kind of a never ending. So we're thinking, okay, how do we capture this drone data, but not slow down our current inspection process?
Right.
So, what we've done is we have a standalone drone team with Scott and the visual observer that goes out the first week of the month. And I flag, okay, we go through our list of structures we have. Okay, which ones do we think are going to need the drones? Using Google Earth or whatever we have to kind of confirm that. Say, all right, this is what we're thinking. Here's a location. Scott creates a list. And then he's off to the races that first week, getting all of his video and pictures, any notes he may see in the field that he wants the inspector to know of. And then they have that information on their iPads, all of those photos, videos, and such when they're out in the field so that they can make their rating. So, I mean, a lot of what's driving this is the new SNBI requirements that Federal Highway put out last year with there was a bearing component rating that it used to be included in the superstructure. Now it's a standalone rating. So we have to get up there and look at them. There's just so much variability in bearing types now. It's an important structural component of the bridge. We got to be up there giving, accurate assessment of what those look like.
Well, and thank you for saying that too, because I think it's cool that we learned how this all gets executed. Like even today, Scott, we know you're out there doing this today. Like you're going to be downloading footage later today. But getting back to, and we kind of highlighted a little bit this along the way, there's more to it though. What benefits are, regular bridge inspection cadence is important, but we did talk about, we're probably helping remove some time and costliness to it. How does this drone usage of inspections help owners, bridge owners? So again, the way maybe they shouldn't go ask nephew or niece to just, hey, go buy a drone and go do this yourself. But what benefits are they seeing in addition to that? Like you said, that SNBI coding for bearings that has changed now. How else are they benefiting from y'all doing this for them?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big one. Every state has a goal to stay in full compliance with the federal highway. They call them the 23 metrics. That's kind of the standards they have for bridge inspection. There's all of these rules that federal highways established, and then the state's goal is to abide by them and be in compliance. And then they get audited regularly and say, hey, you're out of compliance a little bit here, dial this in. And I mean, there's always something. Nobody's perfect. There's always a struggle. But this is one of those areas where we can support the DOTs with helping keeping them in compliance by getting that bearing rating with the SNBI and doing it safely and effectively. I mean, the old school way, Rachel, was if you wanted to get up there, you had a 50-foot, high direct connect flyover bridge, single lane. You had to shut the ramp down, get a snooper truck out there or a bucket truck down below, which is even sometimes more complicated. So, you're not only creating safety hazards for the employees that are hanging out of bucket trucks up in the air 50 feet, but you also have traffic closed off, backed up. Yeah. Rear end accidents, you name it, whatever, it comes with having to close down traffic. So, and then just the time and the money. I mean, it costs us $10,000 a week to get a snooper truck out there. There's still a need for those types of trucks. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, if we can do this with drones, it's just so much faster, so much more convenient and cost effective.
And I mean, going from like Corey's talking about DOT, another big thing of that is keeping the public safe. Working for a DOT, coming from Texas, I did now working for RS&H. I mean, you still, right, you live it, you hear it, you see it. One of their biggest things is with traffic control and getting a snooper truck out, you got to shut that ramp down or you take a 3-lane highway into a 1-lane so we can hang off the edge of it for 20, 30 minutes to look at bearings. So by doing this, you're keeping your traveling public safe, right? Yeah. And nobody sees that drone flying 10 foot under that structure doing what it would have took thousands of dollars and dozens of guys to set up and do. And we have inspectors working nights out there doing it, So, I think as this gets incorporated more and more, that's the big thing that the DOTs are going to see and really start allowing us to do this more and more. Is like, hey, look, what we're paying to have a drone pilot come out and do this versus, what it costs, but also, I've never been in a traffic control before where there wasn't a little bit of, whether it was a minor fender bender or a major accident, you always see something or something happens.
Yeah.
Coming from Texas, we got a lot of people on the road here.
Yeah, it's busy. Then, and there's still going to need for that. I mean, and on the flip side, say you do find a crack in a beam or something major that raises, everybody's, it gets expedited or escalated to the next level. And it allows us to target in on that defect too, right? I mean, a lot of these bridges are a couple thousand feet long. And I mean, to say, hey, we're going to go close this down and spend days looking at every single one with a snooper. What we're able to do with the drone is be like, hey, you have a problem at bent number 12.
Wow.
Focus on that. The rest of the stuff is good. Here's all the video pictures to justify it. You can come out with if you do have to take a lane, your whole operation is just that much quicker because you know exactly where you need to focus and where you need to target your hands on. So I mean, there's always going to be the routine to the hands-on or a special inspection, and all the different types of inspections that go into a solid bridge inspection program. This is just a way to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, if we can eliminate, say a guy hanging off a bridge for 2 hours, or we can eliminate that traffic control instead of 8 hours, make it 3 because we went out there beforehand and, like Corey said, identified the problem, found the problem.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, the problem's not as bad as it seems from 100 yards away. Say, hey, this is something we can look at later on. We don't need to shut down traffic tonight. Just stuff like
eliminates
that.
false alarms. We've had it where it's a cobweb and you're like, oh my, there's a crack in that beam. And then you get up there and it's a spider web, right? But you have to err on the side of caution as an inspector and be like, hey, I think, without the drone, you're like, I think there's a crack in this beam, man. You guys got to close it down and look at it. And then you get up there and wipe it away and like, it was just a mark or a rust stain or something, But
meanwhile, someone's 2 hours late to work and they're mad now.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So, I mean, there's a lot of benefits cost-wise and safety-wise for, across the board for this program to be,
So, okay, nerd time again. And this gets into like capabilities of the actual drone too. And again, knowing that I haven't operated one for 10 years and it's not what you have, but I love the movie Predator because they have all the thermal camera thingies in there. There's one a big thing about the effects, which kind of stand up to today. Does the drone do that too? Can it look at stuff thermally?
So yes, you can. When we ordered this drone, we ordered it with the package. Basically, it's an inspection package. But we actually just got the thumbs up. Corey is hooking me up. We got a thermal camera on the way, so we will be replacing our camera now with a thermal capable camera. So yes,
Cool.
it can. It will be hooked up with thermal in a couple of weeks, and we actually already have a project that we're going to be assisting with it all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the thermal, it's a little tricky. I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, a lot of it is a timer on the temperature variations. You want to catch it early in the morning or late in the evening when you're starting to get that temperature change. The thought process is, Rachel, if there's like a delamination in the concrete they can't see, it's like a hollow spot, you call it. So if you banged on it, it would sound like a hollow spot compared to a ping, and then dud, dud, dud. And that, there's a delam. It hasn't spoiled yet, the concrete. You haven't lost the concrete yet, but it's inevitable. It's going to turn into something larger. The drone, the heat variation between that with the concrete, you have a 9-inch thick bridge deck. Now you have a little 1/2-inch delam. The heat gradient is going to change faster in that debonded part than where it's going to change in the bridge deck. So as the sun's going down, after it's been beaten on it all day, that spot's going to stay really hot while the rest of the deck might be a little bit cooler. And then like vice versa. It could be really hot in the morning and a cold spot, but it'll pop out on you. So a lot of it is the timing, making sure you're getting out there at the right time of the day to catch that variance in that heat, that temperature. But it definitely works. I mean, once you get familiar with it and used to the technology and how to calibrate it in, you can find some things that are going to happen that you may not notice before. So,
Scott, does this mean you get some early mornings and late nights ahead of you because you got to go look at those certain times of day instead of midday?
You know what? You'll never hear me gripe about my job. I love my job. I fly a drone for a living.
Good answer, Scott. Yeah.
My wife tells everybody that I play with toys for a living. So,
I mean, when you showed the toy, I'm pretty sure everybody seeing it on this podcast is like, well, I want to play with that too. I mean,
absolutely.
And that's why it's so cool. I mean, you really have enlightened us all too on this is much more intensive. So much more thought goes into it and preparation and training, expertise, and all this stuff. Again, advantage, Scott, you're a bridge inspector. So, you've got that added expertise in addition to being a drone pilot. But again, that just adds to it's so great that you all have this program that can really save so much for a bridge owner rather than just trying to do it maybe traditional ways or themselves and stuff. So it's a huge additive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're coming up on the final question I want to ask you. It has zero to do with drones. I'm going to warn you about that. But it's relevant in the fact that, I mean, I don't think anyone on this podcast episode is 85 years old, but eventually, yes. But if we were to look back 85 years, drones are, twinkle in someone's eye. They're not real. Or if they are, the government had them and nobody else. But let's look at RS&H, though, too. So RS&H, apparently this is the 85th year anniversary of the company. knowing where we've come, I mean, thinking just even from a technological standpoint, obviously come a long way in 85 years. I'd like to ask both of you, one at a time, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for RS&H and the AEC, architecture, engineering, construction industry over the next 85 years? Is there anything you're just like, this is the big thing we all need to go for? Scott, I'll go to you first. Is there anything you're just like, whoa?
Well, so I feel like this is where Corey is getting nerd out. So,
I'll take your nerdiness too, though. Let's go.
no, I mean, as far as like RS&H, so the biggest thing I see, I mean, that we can really take from this and really build off of it is not, the biggest thing with drones, right? It's been photography forever. When these things first came out, it was, hey, let me put a drone in the air and take pictures like nobody else can. And that's really cool, right? That's still a big thing. You see them chasing F1 cars around. You see them, when there's SpaceX launches, they actually have their first FPV. I mean, you see them coming out of airplanes, going to the ground and skydivers, right? And so I think the biggest thing is the visual perspective that you can have with these drones on the safety side of it, whether it's, RS&H does so many different things, but whether we're helping build something or design something, we can build 3D models to help the engineers out. We can, fly a bridge to find defects that a person on the ground would have trouble seeing without those eyes in the sky, So I guess really what it comes down to, I just see like RS&H, if we keep pushing this and we keep showing what we're doing in every group, right? The construction group, the bridge inspection group, if engineers are out there building 3D models and we keep presenting this, I mean, it makes everybody's life easier. It makes everything safer. And yeah, no, I mean, I definitely see like the program growing a lot over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot, but I think RS&H in the whole will benefit from it too. The different clients it's going to bring, I'm hoping that, eventually we get to a point even within our group that maybe we're doing some stuff that just isn't bridge inspection because we have a really good, drone program and we're going out and helping out with other projects too.
Have to clone more of Scott.
Yeah, that's what we need. That's what we're working on, the cloning technology for Scott.
You heard it here, everyone. That's what's next.
I'm going to need y'all to repeat that to my wife. I'm going to have her join in a little bit.
Well, Corey, over to you then, too. Yeah, well, I mean, 85 years, obviously it's a long way to look back, but what do you see? I mean, what are you predicting that's going to be the biggest opportunity for y'all in the AEC industry in the next 85?
I'm going to stay in the bridge theme, Rachel, just because I'm a bridge nerd, and my whole career has been bridge related, so I can speak to that the best, I think. And right, where I see it really is on the asset management side and owners, maintaining what they have in their inventory and keeping all of that stuff in good shape. I mean, it's always been a challenge, but I see that becoming even more of a challenge down the road. A lot of structures are getting close to 100 years old. Yeah. They were originally designed for like a 50-year service life. So we're already working miracles and keeping these things standing in good shape as it is. And, well, what does that look like for the next 50 years? Nobody has the money to go and replace all of these things. So we're constantly saying, okay, what's your current condition? How can you improve this and get this condition ready and up into a good state for a reasonable cost? And a lot of that boils down to, it's only as good data in and data out, right? So we have to have good inspection reports, accurate quantity measurements for the defects, so we can put together solid strategy for rehab, a solid set of plans for the contractors that on it that doesn't blow up with overruns during construction. So that's a part of it. I see stuff like drones and AI. As these drones get better and AI gets better, I say they're never going to replace an inspector. They could. I mean, you get a drone out there once it can identify a spall versus a DLAM, or a spall that's deep, that with exposed steel, joint defects, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, if you can learn that, I mean, then the drone could go out and do a lot of that work for you. I mean, Scott and I talked about there's new Part 108 requirements that are coming out through FAA that would allow a guy like Scott to get licensed to fly bridge inspections from his home office. What? So not even having to be on site. So I mean, that it's a next level in your certification, but I mean, theoretically, we could get to a point where we have a fleet of drones, say, hey, we need a flight in Michigan, we need a flight in North Carolina, or a flight in Florida, and Scott's like, I'm on it. We got a drone in the area. Boom, he's up and at it and doing a bridge inspection from, his office in Texas. So, I mean, I see that going there. Scott talked about the 3D design. We're getting better on the tolerances. Before it was like, yeah, we can get a 3D image of this bridge. It's really cool looking, but what are you doing with it? It's just something to spin around and kind of look at, and wasn't a whole lot of value there. But as the tolerances get tighter on these drone capabilities and the cameras get better, you're going to get to a digital delivery, probably like a 3D set of plans that the contractors can use to see how everything is going to fit in, see where you have any utility conflicts or right-of-way conflicts, things like that. And I mean, a lot of that can be done with a drone. Where you send it out, do this thing, put the theoretical new design in, and see how everything is going to fit in and fit. And I mean, what a great tool just for public relation meetings, to present to people that can't visualize a 2D set of plans. I mean, that takes a lot of time and training to be able to visualize a 2D set of plans. So, yeah, I think the opportunities are endless. I mean, we're just, not saying we go with the flow, but, we try to stay in front of the technology the best that we can.
Yeah, I think that's evident by the discussion we've had today with y'all, that you saw what was possible. You said, hey, I love the initial thing, brought together by a vision and a pilot who could do it.
Yeah.
And now look what you're doing. And it's obviously taken off literally. Yes, I said
No
a pun
pun
there.
intended.
Oh, totally intended that pun. But just really, I mean, you really are painting that broader picture. It's not just about drones and bridges, but what's potential and possible for the rest of the industry, and applying the technology with a will to do things better. And that's kind of what the underlying mission of RS&H does. So it's great to have you all on here. I know, again, nerd over here, I learned a ton about this, but I mean, this is super helpful for anyone out there who's, is a bridge owner or is tangent to one where it's like, okay, this is the way to go. This is the future, and RS&H has it, and let's make sure we do that. So I want to just say thank you to both of you, Corey and Scott. Thanks so much for being on the podcast and sharing your expertise here, because I think everybody learned a lot, and also might be going and buying themselves a drone soon, whether they're going to inspect a bridge or not.
Yeah, absolutely. We need more people out there flying and having fun and doing it legally, doing it safe.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you for emphasizing that.
Yeah. Don't be flying it in Dodger Stadium or something.
Oh my gosh. No, absolutely not. Just read the fine print before you do anything and take care of it. But thank you both so much. Again, remind everybody, find and follow this podcast anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. RS&H, obviously a great resource, but AEC Perspectives has this and so many more good episodes all about stuff that matters to you in the AEC industry. So thank you all, and join us next time on a new episode for AEC Perspectives. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you.